The most anticipated launch of the 2026 MotoGP launch season has come, and not quite gone yet because it's still ongoing, but the main portion has come, and the bike looks quite different by Ducati standards, but still similar enough. But that's not necessarily the main draw. It's been a lot of interesting talking going on behind the scenes, which we'll get to. A lot of it has to do with 2027, but the truth is 2027 is 2026 in that sense right now when it comes to contracts, and it seems to be moving even earlier than many of us anticipated. But before that, let's talk about the launch itself. Let's talk about the new bike. Simon, how's that event playing out? It's usually it's quite a unique thing, isn't it? Because it is a multi-day launch, which, I mean, God forbid we need more of those, I guess, but it's, certainly has its appeal, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, normal people do a team launch in 4 hours and Ducati do it in 4 days. It is the only team launch that anyone will ever go to where you meet the former world champion and he says, "Did you bring your skis? Are you racing against us tomorrow?" Because that's like normal. Not. Yeah. It's a very odd experience. We're in the Dolomites. It's -3 outside and snowy. Just very different from everything else I've done this week. Bearing in mind, this is my 4th team launch this week. Kind of longer than all the others combined, a lot of good food and drinks, but it is, I mean, primarily it's a sponsor-focused event.
It is.
It's here to show to the sponsors that, Ducati are fantastic at spending their money and giving them a good time in return for all the money they put into the team. Just a very different event from all the others.
And there's a lot of synergy and a lot of cooperation and cooperative synergy, and that's very important.
My favorite section of the presentation was the bit where Claudio Domenicali decided to tell us all about the benefits of Audi's Quattro system in 4-wheel drive vehicles.
Yeah, to tee up Audi's F1 launch.
No, it wasn't even. It was just a random tangent he went off on while he was talking about Audi's F1 project.
To be fair, that part felt unscripted, so I at least appreciate that. Like, that just sort of, he just felt like saying that. When you're a company CEO, you can just talk about things you want to talk about on stage. That's fair enough. I would be using that power to talk about like movies and stuff if I'm doing some sort of launch. Who's going to stop me? It's my company. Speaking of things that I maybe wouldn't do, the bike's still similar, but actually, I mean, this year, I'm not going to pick on Ducati for this. Their design doesn't change enough for my liking, so when it does change sufficiently, as I guess it did this year, you notice it more than usual, and it's still this very familiar Ducati monster Lenovo color scheme with the usual color palette, but they've added some white lines, and they're nice white lines. They look nice.
It's a little bit of a difference. I think what we're probably going to see this year is maybe more special editions than just the 2 home races. I think they might throw a bit of special flair at it now and then because it's the 100th anniversary, as opposed to going all out there with the current bike. But I mean, there's only so much you can do. The bike is quite different because I think the red is a very different red.
Okay.
It's much more matte in person. It looks quite different. I don't know if that's really come across in the pictures or not, but it is like it's visually different enough that I think in 15 years' time, whenever me, who is really bad at telling the difference of generation to generation of bike, will be able to look at it and say that's the 2026 bike, because it's got different visual elements. And obviously next year's bike is going to look totally different because it's going to have less wings. So, different enough.
I believe you on the color thing, because they did mention developing a new color or whatever for Ducati's big anniversaries. By the way, not crazy about that phrasing. The idea of developing colors is just kind of like, colors they're just the thing. They're there. It's like,
that's not true, because there is that company that develops that keep like developing a blacker black. And I mean, someone should paint a MotoGP bike in that. It would look amazing in guitar. It'd be like a shadow.
I don't know about how I feel about any of that. I'm out of my depth.
I'm going to send you pictures afterwards of objects painted in that black paint because it's weird.
I am looking forward to it, but we do have a podcast to do. And speaking of podcasts and other content we have to do, Simon's, because this Ducati launch is still ongoing, Simon is going to provide some behind the scenes stuff in the coming days. And you can check that out as part of a 7-day free trial that we're going to have that also allows you to look at all sorts of our Patreon members club content. Did I mention this was Patreon Members Club? I think I did. This is a terrible plug. But anyway, I'm talking about our Patreon Members Club, the Race Members Club, where you can join to get all sorts of bonus stuff from us. You can listen to these podcasts without ads, but there's also just so much more that we do. We did the full series of 2015 Revisited last season. You could probably use the full trial to listen to through all of it, and that's probably not the best commercial strategy I'm revealing here, but the hope is that what you do listen to, you enjoy enough to where you're like, oh, I want to stick around. I want to see what else they offer up. You can also listen to the movie review podcast I was part of about the movie Driven with Sylvester Stallone, which is still one of the funniest things I've ever recorded, and I feel super
I didn't know that was a thing.
All right, I'll point you out
going to have
afterwards.
To go. Yeah.
Look, I'm not biased. It's really good. Anyway, let's talk about the actual bike that is going to be in the livery, because we've heard a lot about it. It's general strokes, and we still, when it comes to Ducati, we don't know how much of it's going to be on the bike. And once
I should say that, like, as of right now, a few hours after the presentation, we've not actually spoken to Gigi Dall'Igna. Practically no print media has. But what we did get, so last night, whenever we arrived in Madonna di Campiglio, we got like a really good 45 minutes with technical director David Barrena and David Adesano, who is the head of data collection, data analytics for Ducati. So Lenovo organized like a really good session with them, and they told us lots about what they're trying to change on this year's bike, which is quite nice. It's nice to get a bit of a technical briefing on what is coming. They're making quite a big song and dance about the best ever and last ever, praise the Lord, ride height device.
I've noticed that too. Yeah.
Which links back a bit, I think, to the ride height device is what was causing a lot of Pecco's problems in 2025 thing. I mean,
it's come up a lot. Yeah.
So it's interesting how they've made such a big deal out of that.
When Ducati accentuates something, you feel that there's a reason, basically. They can't really hide their engineering excitement over, and they can't, like, when you hear something that sounds a bit confident from Ducati, I think you can take that at face value. I think it's like they see this as a major performance differentiator where they have made another step forward to the point where they consistently sound genuinely bummed about it being banned for 27. We're not particularly bummed, but from an engineering standpoint, clearly, they're proud of their work.
They're
in
engineers.
That area. So that's one of the like three main things that they spoke about in terms of what's different on this bike. Because you would think, and you're not wrong to think, that obviously this is the final year of the regulations. They're going to switch off all sorts of work, or they should at least. Some point
you would
in
imagine the ride height device is not getting any more development from this point.
Yeah. And there's a lot of other stuff that is not going to get any more development. Obviously, that includes the engine under the engine freeze, but the parts that aren't sealed, so there was named all the airbox stuff, basically.
Yeah, so they made a really big deal out of how basically they're using all the computers that Lenovo have given them to design aerodynamics packages to design a better airflow into the bike. So they've changed the airbox, the air intake, all of that. They showed us some really cool like computer modeling that they'd done around the airflow into the engine. And they claim that that's going to give a significant performance boost, a significant speed boost, which is actually something that Ducati has been not leading the pack in recently after forever being the fastest bike in MotoGP. So it's something that they've kind of hinted at that we're going to be, see a difference on track. The interesting thing will be whether or not that is something that can plug into the GP25s as well, whether it's a plug and play component that works with that bike and engine as well, because the engine's the same.
Yeah. The engine isn't frozen for 26; it's frozen 2 years over.
From the start of 25. Yeah.
So that if it's workable, then obviously you would want to bring it to the rest of the fleet too, for whenever Fermin Aldeguer comes back from his current injury absence. The third thing that was mentioned and was accentuated by a few, so it was clearly one of the prepared things that they wanted to point to was. Well, they said vibration, but like vibration and just general stability on higher speed tracks like Assen and Phillip Island, where Phillip Island was, of course, notably
Well, it was where
rough.
we had those videos of Bagnaia's bike pumping coming out of the last corner.
It wasn't just Bagnaia, though. He wasn't the only rider complaining of stability there, but there are two main guys, and the other guy, when he was fit, which obviously he wasn't for Phillip Island, generally didn't seem to mind. And
I think that's more to do with riding style. Yes. And it is worth noting that whenever we spoke to Mark, he was doing the usual Marc Marquez thing of, no problems, I just ride the bike. Yes. But then whenever we speak to the engineers, they're saying, no, like this is not just something that only Pecco is complaining about. Of course. Mark's complaining about it to us, he's just not complaining about it to you.
It was like a very specific and very fun part of their press conference that you attended, where that exact question was put to them, like, come Sepang preseason test, what do you want from the bike? And Pecco was immediately like, more control on throttle, basically, was him, or more control with throttle. I'm not sure, like one of the two. Yeah, I think he means just more control on throttle rather than it being an electronics connected thing. I imagine he specifically means just stability, getting out of the corners. Yeah. And Mark said, "I'm all right. Like, they do what you do, but I'm okay. I'm comfortable with the bike."
But he'll still take any benefit Pecco finds and put it in his bike. Yeah. Like, that's how it
Mark
works.
Mark also said, like, clearly, and we'll get to his fitness a little bit in a second, but clearly whatever has happened to his shoulder, we know the injury that has happened to his shoulder, has not dented his confidence significantly, because one of the other answers, like, they've asked him about, I don't even remember what the question was about. I do remember the answer was...
He was asked whether the problem was speed or whether he was missing speed whenever he got back in the bike. And he said, no, the speed was there right away. The speed never goes away.
Yes.
His issue at the minute is essentially his fitness. He can only do so much time at that speed before he has to stop because he's tired.
But there's no concern at all about missing the end of the season or the test. If anything, like he sounds like a person who is like, hey, I got to miss 4 of the 22 rounds and recuperate a little bit. Although clearly the winter has been hard with physio work, but
he sounds like someone that will not do the last afternoon in Sepang. Because he's going to be pretty tired getting back into bike fitness and everything. But apart from that, he sounds chill.
But because he also said, the limit will be the body, which I don't know. It's fighting talk for me, which, I mean, he deserves to be able to say that. He's proven it again and again. But the fact that he's very open and saying, like, look, I'm not worried what the bike development is happening, whatever was going on in the test, those guys can handle it, and I'll come in and I'll ride it faster than they will.
We saw in 2025, and we saw in 2019, and we saw in probably 2014 that he just needs a bike that's good enough because he's Marc Marquez. That is why superstars are bad development riders.
So Mark still has a bit of work, as Simon mentioned. There's a durability situation where it's just the wear and tear on the shoulder. Not even the wear and tear, just it gets tired, basically. So he's going to need to work on that. He's going to need to make himself a better rider through the weekend. But for a burst of speed, he sounds already pretty confident. He's back on the dirt bike, I think in December, on the road bike earlier this month. And there's generally confidence from him that he'll be at the right level of fitness for Thailand. When he says Thailand, I don't know if he means test or race. I think he means race. I don't really think
there's only like 3 days between them this year.
Yeah,
it's the closest gap we've ever had between final test and first race. Basically, it's. I'm in my head. Thailand is one event this year, essentially, because of how small that interval is.
But we've seen this exact Mark song and dance a few times in his career. Not to say that he does it deliberately, but just that he's like it's not a.
He's no stranger to shoulder injuries over winter.
And going under the knife, having some.
I mean, this is essentially the third time, right?
Yeah, it would have been 18-19 or 17-18, one of those.
18 into 19, 19 into 20.
Okay, there you go.
And then because he got both shoulders done, he had surgery on both shoulders because of the dislocation problem, and then obviously the 20 season didn't start, but he had done all the work in preparation for it and all the preseason testing. So it's the third time, and then there's all the recovery from the arm injury problems as well, which is a whole separate thing, but similar.
And I was trying to align it in my head whether there's ever been a connection between that sort of thing where Mark finds his way through the flyaways, and then we go to like the European season and the races start coming thick and fast, and the championship battle is killed off then and there. But no, it's just what he does. It's not really connected to the
he generally
stuff.
does it at like, he generally finds what's missing on the final day of testing.
Yes.
That is kind of the strategy in these recoveries. He eases his way through testing, puts it all together in the last day, and look, Mark's P1 again.
Yeah, I remember there being a lot of MotoGP preseason tests where you look at the position in testing and you look at where the riders are, and it generally does tell you something. And then you look at like Marquez 9th or 11th, and you go, whatever, this tells me nothing.
That 19 into 20 preseason is the one where the Honda Aero wasn't working. And then on the last day, he put Crutchlow's year-old Aero onto the bike, and suddenly he was just like P1 in Qatar again, and he was Mark.
Yeah, it's just normal. So I imagine he will take it especially easy this preseason.
In Sepang, at least.
There is, in the meantime, one more thing for him to sort out. I'm quite surprised how quick this is unfolded, but the messaging is very strong, especially from Ducati, very pointed from Ducati, that the rider market is moving early, and it's going to, like, the preference is for it to move early on Marc Marquez's side. The way the two sides spoke, it almost sounds like Ducati is obviously super keen to keep him. You would be super keen. It is the priority. They've stated publicly that it is a priority, because it's two different things. Remember, obviously it's the priority, but to publicly claim it, to be able to publicly come out there and repeatedly say, yep, we want to re-sign him, and then the rest is secondary, it's strong. And it sounds like definitely Ducati. Claudio Domenicali spoke to Sky Italy, said that it would be strange if a renewal wasn't agreed, or at least some finality wasn't reached before the start of the season. I guess whether that's a renewal or Mark deciding to do something else, but with all the parties very tentatively going, look, we're trying to renew here probably.
I've heard this language before from riders and from team bosses and management. This is the win bonuses. Okay. Not teams who are negotiating whether or not the rider says that they're in the final stages of putting this together. And if we get a contract announcement, a 2-year contract announcement deal, that includes images, regardless of when we're taking it, if we get one that includes images that are clearly taken in Madonna di Campiglio, I would not be surprised, because that's what this sounds like. It sounds like they're dotting I's and crossing T's at this point.
I agree.
Because you don't say things the way that they're saying them otherwise. You don't say that we're going to have a deal done. We should have a deal done by the start of the season, and et cetera, et cetera. There is an argument that it makes no sense to announce it here, because then you lose half the PR value, because you're getting all the media attention anyway. So you just leave it a few weeks and do it in that gap between. I mean, what they're going to do is they're going to absolutely disrupt my holiday between Sepang and Thailand, aren't they? By announcing it in the middle of it,
or right before the season opener, or something, or something of the sort. I completely agree. I completely agree with what you're saying, because usually when the rhetoric becomes that, it's really close. The one thing is, Mark was a little bit dissatisfied with how quickly the market is moving. I think that's honest. I think there's a genuine, slight annoyance from him that
he wants to see what Honda build.
Yeah, that he is. That presumably
that's the only other alternative here. Let's be honest.
I imagine Ducati has made a good offer, but told him, but hey, we're not going to hang around until April, March, or whatever. So you got it. You got to put to pen paper now. And he's probably grumped a little bit, but he said, all right, that sounds good. Everything else he said, he also mentioned that he now needs to take a step back and make the best decision for him personally and professionally, which I have to admit briefly set off my alarm of, you're not thinking of walking away from this, are you, buddy?
Yeah,
which
that means he's trying to decide whether or not his new Audi RS8 is going to be red or black at this point.
It's probably, you say it's money. I would also not be surprised if, when they say personally.
I didn't say it's money. I said specifically it's the color of the.
I think it's media commitments. I think it's slashing media
I can
hours.
imagine that being one of the stumbling blocks in this contract, actually.
Because that's
he
when
likes
they say
doing
personally,
very little media these days. He's got spoiled at Grassini.
When they say personally, it means that my personal preference is to stay at home instead of flying out to a sponsor's event in wherever.
It may also mean things like it's worth noting that it may involve personal team sponsor conflicts like we saw last year
Yes.
with the Ducati thing, with the Oakley thing, with the Samsung thing. It could be issues like that.
I agree.
That, that are coming to mind. So there are multiple things that it could be at play here.
I mean,
but I don't think any of them are deal breakers.
I would be very surprised at this point if this goes any other way. And Mark did also point out that, remember when he was at Honda and every contract cycle coming up, everybody was like, is this finally the time that Mark feels the urge to be pushed, like for his legacy, to try to win on another bike, etc. And then a new contract renewal would come because Mark doesn't want to move when he's comfortable. And he himself has confirmed this multiple times. So I think expect some news on that front. And it is also would then explain why Ducati took the approach in the rhetoric that it took, which is what not only did Claudio Domenicali say what he said, but also Davide Tardozzi, the team manager, in separate language interviews repeatedly used like very similar wording every time to say that Mark is the priority re-signing, and then we'll have a look, as if to get out of the PR that you need to deal with for when the Mark announcement comes and the second seat is not clear.
Just to correct one thing, they haven't said that Mark's the priority.
They haven't said Mark. Yeah, you're
They've
right.
said that the world champion is the priority, which is the same language that they used with Pecco in the past,
Yes.
And that's being done with a very deliberate purpose to make it not look like there's any sort of favoritism going on.
For sure. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And
so I get what they're doing with that.
To make it kinder towards Pecco Bagnaia, who finds himself now in a position where he is not the rider for Ducati to renew as the first priority. For what it's worth, Claudio Domenicali did say Mark, so he was not too worried about it.
And for what it's worth, Pecco is in agreement with them by and large, because his take is that he needs to see if he's basically able to ride a Ducati again. So he's also in no rush to sign it. I mean, if they put a contract in front of him tomorrow, would he sign it? Yes, probably.
Probably, yeah.
But no, I don't think it's definitive,
Maybe. I mean, depends what obviously it always depends what the contract says. It depends what
the contract says. I mean, but it also depends what conversations he's had with Massimo Rivola,
for example. I should say that a lot of the interest in me discussing this comes from the fact that Massimo Rivola and Aprilia, who again like to stir things, enjoy playing the game the way it is played in MotoGP, apparently told Italian media in the aftermath of the Aprilia launch, or during some point of the Aprilia launch, that they expect a Costa in Ducati colors, Petro Costa, at some point.
I have a tangent to go on here.
Mm-hmm.
So Uccio Solucci, Valentino Rossi's VR460 boss, is here.
Okay.
I don't know if I think he's just kind of passing by. He's here skiing. He came to the launch, and some of the Italian journalists spoke to him for a few minutes, and he let something slip that I had never made the connection of before, because there was a whisper did the rounds a while back about VR46 Aprilia for 27.
Yes. Yep.
And now there's kind of Pecco. Pecco is talking to Aprilia rumors. Bez is already there rumors. Whenever Valentino Rossi did his Ferrari F1 testing stint, it was all organized by Massimo Rivola.
Okay, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah,
and apparently that relationship is got very friendly again.
Okay.
Yeah, so there has been conversations, according to Uccio, because they're quite pally these days.
Yeah, that would make a bit of sense.
Yeah.
So it's funny how much of this industry is. I know that's, I guess, not a very interesting observation, but the amount of money we're talking about and competitive, and then it often comes down to who have you known for the longest and who.
I was waiting to see what way you described it, because
Yeah.
I was going to use the word incestuous, because by
fantastic.
and large is this paddock. Like everyone is connected to everyone in MotoGP.
I think, look, this is just me reading into things that might not be there. I don't think the vibe is good on a Bagnaia renewal coming out of this whole thing. I did not feel it. It also feels to me like Pecco Bagnaia has slightly changed what he's saying about it. Like he's. I remember last year him being quite frank and saying, "Hey, I want to continue with Ducati. I want to," and to pivot from that to need to see how I go over the first few races for me is. I think.
it almost feels like he has realized that he'd be better served elsewhere, rather than, him kind of being of the opinion that it's time to get out, or feeling like he's being forced out. I think he's maybe realized that, I mean, everyone realizes eventually that being Marc Marquez's teammate isn't that much fun. Maybe he's realized that there is a chance that Pedro Acosta is going to end up as Marc's teammate next year. So why not get ahead of the curve? And I mean, essentially, whenever Massimo Rivola is saying you're going to get sacked, why not basically call his bluff and go to Rivola and say, well, then put a deal in front of me, man. Make me an offer.
I've had this weird deja vu feeling.
Sorry, before you go on, or go and have that conversation with Honda before they sign Jorge Martin.
I've had this weird deja vu feeling going through, the Marquez Bagnaia press conference, and obviously that part where Marc mentioned his dissatisfaction with the contract cycle moving so early before anybody has any idea what state of 2027 project anybody is in, before anybody has any idea how they're even going to start 2026, how healthy they are even. But in all that, he mentioned that it is not fair, potentially, to riders like Bagnaia, that Bagnaia currently does not command the rider market power that Marquez feels he would deserve. You know what that reminded me of? And again, this is probably unfair, but what can you do? Remember all the time Bagnaia had already established himself as number one at Ducati, and the time would come for contract stuff on the other side of the garage. And first Bagnaia was like, hey, please keep Jack Miller. And then Bagnaia was like, hey, please keep Enea Bastianini. That would be my priority. And now he's the guy who's sort of being like, hey, please, won't somebody think of this guy, my trusty teammate, who they clearly get on. And I don't think Marc is afraid of any teammate.
They do get on. And that's something really worth stressing today. Like, so whenever I interviewed Marc in Motegi, he told me in the interview about how he always has an amazing relationship with his teammates in the period between the last race and the first race.
Yeah.
And then things naturally cool as it goes into the season and they're competing against each other and everything. But like, him and Pecco are best mates today. They're like laughing and joking. They're like screwing around on stage when they're getting their photo taken or when they're waiting for people to come and have their photo taken with them. They just look like really friendly and chilled out and relaxed today. And there's been this bit of a narrative of, Marc destroys his teammates and whatever. He certainly hasn't destroyed the relationship with Pecco.
Yeah. When he said that to you, I think he primarily meant, or at least that's what he felt like, Danny Pedrosa, who's a very particular kind of guy who is a different version of himself when he's in the day-to-day grind of the racing. Whereas I think for Marc, it's all more like water off a duck's back, whatever happens on track, generally speaking.
And I think Pecco is more like that than people realize as well.
Yes. Yeah. Again, like, who were the other Marc teammates? Jorge Lorenzo, that basically didn't happen. Alex Marquez, that did not happen, basically. And I mean, that's a particular case. That's a different kind of relationship that goes well beyond what their relationship as teammates are. Who cares?
Yeah. Joan Mir, who has been no like real lover of his teammates anyway.
Yeah. Paul Espargaro was a surprising one. I think they didn't get on great. But Paul, it was also not a great time to be Paul Espargaro, generally speaking. And he is, I think Pecco Bagnaia is different to all of those guys. I would agree with that. I genuinely 100,000% believe that they get on perfectly well, and that, like, even in season, everything that Ducati has ever put out, and of course they're not going to put out if actually they're secretly punching each other somewhere in the paddock. But
we work with them. We spend time in their environment. You see the relationship, and when someone's faking it. And it's never felt like that with those two.
But it is also important to say that every time, let's say Pecco Bagnaia has fluttered his eyelashes and gone, can you please keep my teammate and not bring another guy into the garage? That plea fell on. Yeah, that didn't happen. Ducati moves. Yeah. Ducati does things. And I think this is the worst I felt about the likelihood of Bagnaia staying at Ducati, even like compared to the badness of his bad stretch last year, which today he's spoken a little bit about again. And of course, it's, the feeling with the bike stuff, but he dropped an interesting nugget where he said he needed to be better basically at finishing third and fourth and then not spiraling when that happens. We're just going, okay, third, fourth, let's build from that. Look, if that's true, it kind of feels too true to be true, if that makes sense. It kind of makes too much sense that like he finished third a bunch to Mark and Alex and was horrified by it and spiraled instead of trying to build off of that and the entire season was built around returning to that baseline. I don't know. Feels simple, but possible, I guess.
I mean, I don't know. I think the good thing is that if he doesn't renew with Ducati, there's 3 other factory teams that make offers.
Yeah. Are they great offers?
I mean, Honda's a great offer if they make one. Aprilia's pretty damn good offer.
Yeah, I think they're really.
I mean,
good
I'm not saying I don't mean financially, just financially.
Yeah.
I mean across the board. Pecco Bagnaia on an Aprilia is a 2027 race winner.
You would hope so, yeah. I mean, you never know what the 27
regular race winner. If Marco with no ill will in the world, Marco Bezzecchi can finish ahead of Pecco in the championship on that bike, then Pecco can finish ahead of Bez on the same bike. I think I know this year was a blip. Yeah, you know what I mean. I think the bike is good enough to allow him to be. Yeah. I mean, we're just basically conceding that while Mark is on that Ducati and the Ducati is doing what it is, it's a battle for second. So you want to be able to win regular races and fight for a championship if Mark gets hurt, because that's the reality. And I think that the Aprilia Bagnaia deal would do that. I think given the Honda trend, if they have another year of development, that would do that. And I mean, he's got to be more amenable. You know, who would you choose between him or Luca Marini in reality? If you were, if you're Yamaha, him or Alex Rins,
Pecco,
him or Jack Miller. That's not the. And to be honest, I mean, him or Brad Binder.
I'm afraid of going there. This is. I feel like
but
if
also
I say what I want to say, I'm not going.
But also, if Pecco has not got a Ducati seat, there's probably a space at KTM for him alongside Binder. So you know what I mean. There are options at every other manufacturer for him. He's not going to be, a VR46 Ducati rider on a year-old bike in 27. Well, it won't be a year-old bike in 27 because everything's going to be new. But you know what I mean. He's not going to end up on a satellite bike just because Ducati don't offer him a contract.
It's been floated as an idea somewhere, hasn't it?
I think it's been floated by people that don't understand that there are multiple factory offers for him. I think if you think that he's going to go, as someone pointed out earlier when we were talking about it, VR46 is a backstop for VR46 Academy riders, the way it has been for Franco Morbidelli, and you don't go directly to the backstop, you take the factory offer first.
Yeah.
Even if it's not on a Ducati, so I think that there's, why would you go and ride for VR46 for €500,000 a year whenever you can ride a worse Honda for 10 million, 5 million?
So what a lot of this, and the reason why I'm struggling to really write off any option, but also like conventional wisdom, what we know about riders and how they behave when there's a situation like that is, firstly, if Pecco were to get a Ducati factory offer right now to stay at the factory team, logic dictates, especially with Mark now commanding a greater salary, he would have less money in it. And you know what? Mm-hmm. Probably considerably so, going by how the past contract cycle went. Or at least, I don't know. I haven't seen his contract, but that would be logical to me. And because then if you didn't, you could probably get Pedro Costa on that same money or less money or something of the sort. Yeah. So it's not like competitively, he's just not in a position to demand what he used to demand.
Pedro Costa, we should say, is in a fairly unique position in that he is a rider who has earned his factory money while still very young, but hasn't delivered the results that he wants to achieve.
Yes.
Whereas in normal circumstances, we see people taking a factory offer at a lesser factory after they've achieved the results to then earn the money.
Yeah, exactly.
He's kind of done it. That's a very unusual position for a young rider to be in.
But I think it's always very difficult for riders to take a pay cut at the same place. I've always said this, and I believe it because it feels like human nature, especially for guys like that who must think consistently in themes of self-worth and themes of legacy, and like everybody has to be bought into you for you to feel good about showing up to the track. And the way they show they're bought into you is not by offering you less money for the same job that you were doing yesterday. So that would be one hurdle. And we've seen, remember how bad the Andrea Dovizioso stuff got, obviously, with the suggestion of like how obviously there was a breakdown between him and Gigi Dall'Igna, but also the money famously played a big part, especially given what Jorge Lorenzo was on at the time, that Andrea Dovizioso was outperforming Jorge Lorenzo at Ducati. For me, though, Bagnaia is just an unusual guy to be in this position. He's kind of he kind of doesn't have the level of ego you would expect for me.
No.
That's how I felt, which means I can't also rule out that if Ducati tells him, hey, here's a factory contract to go right for VR46, that he definitively says no.
There is one other thing to consider here, though. If he jumps on the bike in Sepang and immediately says, oh, this is everything that was missing last year.
Yeah.
And finishes second, first in the first 4 races, totally different conversation.
Yep, absolutely.
Totally different conversation. And that's why he wants time to see how he is, rather than doing a Marquez and signing it instantly. Like that.
His market value is low. It's as low as it's been. His market
value is as low as it has ever been in MotoGP right now.
Yeah.
Because of essentially the block of races from Motegi to Valencia.
From Spielberg to Valencia.
Yeah, but I think the Motegi that amazing Motegi weekend, then, you know what I mean? So he just needs time to kind of show the world that was a blip and not a reality. His market value can bounce back very, very quickly to a very high level again with a minimal amount of effort.
Things are insanely volatile in this kind of sport anyway when it comes to that sort of thing. I mean, no races contractually are more important than the races we're about to have. That's always the case. And one correctly timed win can change everything, can be much more valuable than just the win. And I know that's always the example we go to, but Fabio Quartararo timed his Moto2 win very well, very well. And it meant that he was a MotoGP champion very soon after that. Also, it helps that he's super good.
That is a little bit of a help. It goes, like we've written about this before, haven't we, about how cycling has a ban on signing new contracts to the 1st of August, and how that would be the dream situation for Pecco Bagnaia right now. But
it is still important, even with everything we've said, to have talked about this now, because things are moving. Things are clearly moving. Like they are moving more than I expected.
They are, but right. So I've said for a while that I think there's a couple of linchpin decisions in this season. Marquez is one of them. Quartararo is one of them, and Bagnaia is probably the third. And then everything else will move around that. I think Marquez is the least important of those. And even if Mark is literally right now over there signing a contract, doesn't necessarily change anything else for 6 weeks, because Quartararo needs to ride the bike.
Yeah,
he needs to ride the Yamaha, and I think that will pause other things, because Ducati have to be interested in Fabio
if they can afford him.
If they can afford him, and he will take a pay cut as well to have a Ducati. They have to be as interested in him as they are in Acosta.
Sure.
They've got to be.
I think Acosta he could offer himself at a massively cut price, and then I think
he could. It is also worth noting that all of the Acosta talk is coming from Spanish media, not Italian media.
Yes.
And Acosta's management is very, very good at creating storylines.
And in fact, it is in
Paco
their
Sanchez
best
has
been on the record talking about it.
It's in their best interests to make it sound like he's practically already signed for them.
Yeah. Paco Sanchez, of course, being the Pedro Costa manager, and also the manager of Joan Mir, I want to say. And
no, Paco Sanchez doesn't manage Acosta. Albert Valera does.
Albert Valera.
Yeah.
My bad.
Yeah.
They should cut all of that, but they're not going to, so it's fine.
Who manages? No, Spanish management. Who manages Jorge Martin and Aleix?
Yeah, the cycling superstar.
Yeah, the cycling superstar. No, he's now retired from professional cycling.
Fair enough. Well, That was a lot to dig into. So it's really nice because I was quite worried about this launch just showing kind of a similar bike and fizzling out. But instead, we've got some technical stuff to talk about, and we've got some really, really cool rider market stuff to talk about now, Simon, over the next few days. Obviously, Yamaha coming up. Before then,
Yamaha
you have to go
Trackhouse
and Trackhouse
on the same day.
Okay,
but both one virtual, one in Jakarta. So I'm not going to either. I mean, I'm going to the virtual one, but I'm going virtually because that's how everyone's going.
Like the metaverse, putting on the
yeah, no, pretty much
Oculus glasses or whatever. Oh, yeah. Before that, obviously, your job over the next few days is to try to ambush people while skiing. See if Pecco
that sounds like the opening to a James Bond film.
Does Spy Who Loved Me? I want to say. I don't remember which one of them.
There's been a few James Bond skiing moments, hasn't there?
Yeah. Spy Who Loved Me is the one I remember.
It's the one with the amazing opening scene with the parachute.
Thank you very much. I was a little worried because I got the manager thing so wrong that if I went 2 for 2 there with the Bond trivia, why would people listen to me anyway? But I got the important thing right.
Spoiler alert on a 50-year-old film: the spy who loved him is the partner of the guy that he kills during that chase.
It's a big plot point and a big twist. Yeah, but look, you'll have to find out for yourself whether James Bond gets forgiven for that at the end of the movie. Wonderful, fantastic. Thank you very much for tuning in, and check the Races Members Club to find out whether Simon ambushes any of the Ducati riders in a James Bond style chase in Madonna di Campiglio.